Now we want to talk about the statement of Imam Al-Qushayri. Imam Al-Qushayri said in At-Tadhkirah Ash-Sharqiyyah, وَأَمَّا قَوْلُ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ بِهِ وَقْتَ قِيَامِ السَّاعَةِ. He said, as for the saying of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ, no one knows its ta'wil except Allah. What is meant by it is the time of the occurrence of Judgment Day. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah. No one knows when it will occur except Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. فَإِنَّ الْمُشْرِكِينَ سَأَلُوا النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ. For surely the pagans asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about Judgment Day. أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا وَمَتَى وُقُوعُهَا. When will it happen? And remember that those pagans didn't used to believe in Judgment Day. So they asked him that not out of belief in it. It was part of their pagan religion to deny Judgment Day. They believed that when you die, then that's it. There's nothing after that. Your body will decay and that's it. And of course, that's blasphemy. قال فالمتشابه إشارة إلى علم الغيب. He said, therefore, the ambiguous is a sign or is a signal to the knowledge of the unseen, the knowledge of the ghaib. فَلَيْسَ يَعْلَمُ عَوَاقِبَ الْأُمُورِ إِلَّا اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. For no one knows the outcomes of matters except Allah Azza wa Jal. وَلِهَذَا قَالَ هَلْ يَنظُرُونَ إِلَّا تَأْوِيلَهُ يَوْمَ يَأْتِي تَأْوِيلُهُ. And for this Allah said, هَلْ يَنظُرُونَ إِلَّا تَأْوِيلَهُ. Are they awaiting, other than its ta'wil, are they awaiting something other than its ta'wil? يَوْمَ يَأْتِي تَأْوِيلُهُ. On the day when its ta'wil comes, ... The ayah goes on. What is it saying? Are they awaiting anything other than Judgment Day's ta'wil? That's Surah Al-A'raf, ayah 53. That's clear. It means Judgment Day very clearly in the ayah. يَوْمَ يَأْتِي تَأْوِيلُهُ. On the day when its ta'wil comes, then the ayah talks about things that happen on Judgment Day. The kafir will say, this is the day that the messengers of Allah warned us about. Is there anyone to intercede for us? Or can we go back to the dunya? So it clearly refers to the commencement of Judgment Day. So that substantiates our explanation for the most famous recitation of the 7th ayah of Surah Al-Imran. Is that clear? We said the saying of Allah, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ, means no one knows its ta'wil except Allah. Meaning no one knows when Judgment Day will occur except Allah. No one knows Judgment Day's ta'wil, meaning its manifestation, except Allah. We said that because of evidence. And among what substantiates that, besides what we've already said before, is this 53rd ayah of Surah Al-A'raf. هَلْ يَنظُرُونَ إِلَّا قِيَامَ السَّاعَةِ. Al-Qushayri said, it means, Or are they awaiting but the establishment of the hour? Are they awaiting anything other than the occurrence of Judgment Day? وَكَيْفَ يَسُوغُ لِقَائِلٍ أَن يَقُولَ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى مَا لَا سَبِيلَ لِمَخْلُوقٍ إِلَى مَعْرِفَتِهِ. Okay. Before we read this statement of Al-Qushayri, we need an introductory issue. We said that the ayah of Surah Al-Imran, the 7th ayah of Surah Al-Imran, has 2 recitations, right? One recitation is وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah. The other recitation is وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah and those who are deeply rooted in the knowledge. And we said that it is necessary that ta'wil in both recitations has a different interpretation. Each recitation has its own interpretation. Because in one recitation, no one knows the ta'wil but Allah. So not even the scholars know it. Not even those who are deeply rooted in the knowledge know it. And in the other recitation, no one knows the ta'wil but Allah and those who are deeply rooted in the knowledge. So ta'wil has to have 2 different meanings, one for each recitation. Also, what did we say towards the end of the last lesson? What did the Wahhabis do? Which is what all the Mushabbiha did, actually, not just them. They took the most famous recitation where you stop at the name Allah. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah. But they gave it the explanation of the other recitation. So they said it means no one knows the interpretation except Allah. They did not say it means no one knows the time of happening of Judgment Day except Allah. So someone might say, okay, what's wrong with that? Why can't they give this recitation that interpretation? The answer is because there's another recitation. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah and those who are deeply rooted in the knowledge. So what does it mean here? How would you be able to explain ta'wil in this recitation if you explained it as interpretation in the other recitation? You left it without any way to explain it. You won't be able to explain it as no one knows the time of happening except Allah and those who are deeply rooted in the knowledge. So, that recitation, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ, no one knows its ta'wil except Allah, does not mean no one knows the interpretation of the ayahs except Allah. Rather, the people of knowledge do know the interpretation of the mutashabih ayahs. That's the meaning of the other recitation. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. No one knows the correct interpretation of these mutashabih verses except Allah and those who are deeply rooted in the knowledge. Here, ta'wil means interpretation. So how do we explain the first recitation? Ta'wil means the time of happening of Judgment Day. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah. So, let's go back to the way the Wahhabis misinterpreted the ayah. They said, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah means no one knows its interpretation except Allah. Okay, this is invalid because it leaves the other recitation without an explanation. Also, it's another reason why it's invalid. Because the meaning leads to something invalid. To say that only Allah knows the interpretations of these verses implies something invalid, and that's what Imam Al-Qushayri wants to talk about now. So Imam Al-Qushayri wants to talk about the implication of the way they explain this ayah. I'm saying the Wahhabis because those are the people we deal with today. But the Mushabbiha in general, throughout time, the argument has been the same. Mushabbiha likeners have popped up from time to time throughout the Islamic history. And although they're not all saying the exact same thing, but they are having many similarities of believing that Allah is in the sky or over the throne or sitting on the throne, that he has body parts. This is their madhab, the madhab of the Mushabbiha, and they have a common understanding. So Al-Qushayri was before the Wahhabis. But the Wahhabis today are making the same mistake that the Mushabbiha made before them. And we're making the same explanation that Ahlul Sunnah made before us. So Imam Al-Qushayri says, Rahimahullah, وَكَيْفَ يَسُوغُ لِقَائِلٍ أَن يَقُولَ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى مَا لَا سَبِيلَ لِمَخْلُوقٍ إِلَى مَعْرِفَتِهِ وَلَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. He said, how would it be valid for someone to say, or acceptable for someone to say, about the book of Allah Ta'ala, that there is something in it that there is absolutely no way for the creation to know it, and that no one knows its explanation except Allah in any way whatsoever? Because that's what the Mushabbiha intend. They're saying no one knows what these ayahs mean, only Allah knows, but then they don't realize they contradict themselves when they add after that, therefore we must take it literally. This is somehow makes sense to them. They say, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah. No one knows its interpretation except Allah, or its true interpretation, or its hidden meaning, as some people might say, except Allah. They say, therefore we must take it literally and not make any ta'wil. They say no one knows its ta'wil except Allah. The ta'wil is, they say we don't know it. So then we can't make any ta'wil. We can't do what's called ta'wil. So we just take it literally. But that leads to saying what? Doesn't that mean they're explaining the ayah? Doesn't that mean, aren't they basically saying, so this is what it means? Yes. They're saying it means this. We're going to take it literally, meaning they chose a meaning. So somehow that made sense to them. MashaAllah. Imam Al-Qushayri is saying, how is it acceptable for someone to believe that there's something in the book of Allah that no one has any way to know what it means? Absolutely. That there's absolutely no way for any creation to ever know what it means. He's saying this is invalid. Okay, before I forget, someone might say, well, it's in the books of the scholars. They say, they talk about the mutashabih ayahs and they say, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah. They mean the meaning. So, someone might bring you some text that actually they said that. They might bring some ayahs and they say, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. What they meant was, no one can be 100% certain that the ta'wil that they chose, that the tafsir that they chose is the intended meaning by the ayah. This we don't disagree with. From that point of view, Allah is the one who knows what those mutashabih verses mean. We, for example, when we say istawa in the ayah means qahara, to subdue or conquer or dominate. The scholar said this is the likely meaning. This is the preponderated meaning. They didn't say this is definitely the way that the ayah is supposed to be explained and no other way is the way. So then what is the way? What is the true, proper, definitive tafsir of Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa. Allahu a'lam. Allah knows. Then what are we saying? What is Imam al-Qushayri saying then? He's saying what's wrong is to say or believe that there's something in the Quran that no one has any way to know what it means at all. There are people of knowledge who know how to explain these ayahs. Even if that explanation is by an ijtihad. Even if their explanation of these ayahs is by an ijtihad. So Imam al-Qushayri said, وَكَيْفَ يَسُوغُ لِقَائِلٍ أَنْ يَقُولَ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى مَا لَا سَبِيلَ لِمَخْلُوقٍ إِلَى مَعْرِفَتِهِ. He said, how is it valid for someone to say that there is in the book of Allah that which there is no way for any creation to know what it means? وَلَا يَعْلَمُ تَعْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And no one knows its explanation except Allah. By any means. أَلَيْسَ هَذَا مِنْ أَعْظَمِ الْقَدْحِ فِي النُّبُوَّاتِ. Isn't this among the greatest ways to discredit prophethood? وَأَنَّ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ مَا عَرَفَ تَعْوِيلَ مَا وَرَدَ فِي صِفَاتِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. And to claim that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not know the explanation of what came concerning the attributes of Allah. Because that's what it leads to say even the Prophet doesn't know how to explain the revelation that was given to him. Alayhi salatu wassalam. Concerning his Lord at that, the most important matter. According to the claim of the Mushabbiha, according to their interpretation of this ayah, and their claim that no one knows the explanation of these ayahs except Allah, then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with something that even the Arabs don't understand. And that's impossible because Allah Ta'ala says, بِلِسَانٍ عَرَبِيٍّ مُبِينٍ. The Quran is revealed in a clear Arabic tongue. Then the Quran came in the speech of the Arabs, which means the Arabs can understand it. So, yes, there are ayahs in the Quran that even the Arabs, if they heard them, they may not be sure how to explain them. But it's not something that's alien to them. It's not something foreign to them. When they heard, for example, Alif Lam Mim, this is not insignificant to them. It's not meaningless. It's not babble. Rather, it is significant to them, even if they might not know how to explain it, or some of them might know how to explain it or think they know how to explain it. And we're talking about the old Arabs, by the way, not the Arabs of today, not present Arabs. Rather, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam recited those letters, they were attentive and they were impressed. So if no one knows its interpretation except Allah, it means even the Arabs don't know it. So even if the Arabs don't know it, then how is it a clear Arabic language? So according to the Wahhabis and the Mushabbiha before them, Allah lied when he said, بِلِسَانٍ عَرَبِيٍّ مُبِينٍ. It is revealed in a clear Arabic tongue. Because it was not known to them. It was not intelligible to them. وَإِذَا كَانَ بِلُغَةِ الْعَرَبِ فَكَيْفَ يَدَّعِي أَنَّهُ مِمَّا لَا تَعْلَمُهُ الْعَرَبِ لَمَّا كَانَ ذَلِكَ الشَّيْءُ عَرَبِيًّا. And if it was in the language of the Arabs, then how would such a person claim that there is in the Quran that which the Arabs don't know, when the language of the Quran is Arabic? فَمَا قَوْلٌ فِي مَقَالٍ مَآلُهُ إِلَى تَكْذِيبِ الرَّبِّ سُبْحَانَهُ. So what kind of statement is it, the one that leads to contradicting the Lord? What kind of statement is a statement when it leads to contradicting the Lord, contradicting God? وَالْغَرَضُ أَنْ يَسْتَبِينَ مَنْ مَعَهُ مُسْكَةٌ مِنَ الْعَقْلِ. And the goal here, Al-Qushayri says, is for anyone who has a little bit of sense to clarify. أن قول من يقول استواؤه صفة ذاتية لا يعقل معناها واليد صفة ذاتية لا يعقل معناها والقدم صفة ذاتية لا يعقل معناها تمويه ضمنه تكييف وتشبيه ودعاء إلى الجهل. He said the goal here is for someone who has even a bit of sense to clarify that when someone says his istiwa is an attribute of himself that is inconceivable, and his yad, I'm going to keep it in Arabic for now, because if they're speaking in English, they're going to translate it. They're going to say his rising above, his hand, his this and that. Let's keep it in Arabic for now. In fact, let me pose a question to you, not for you to answer, but just to think about. When we in English discuss with the Wahhabi, he's going to say to us, Allah has face and hands and eyes, etc. He's translating. And we say to him, no, Allah is not attributed with body parts. He says, I'm not attributing body parts to Allah. We say, okay, so don't say hands, face, eyes, etc. He'll say, well, that's what these ayahs mean. This is what these attributes mean. And we say, the literal meaning is not intended. So if you don't want to attribute body parts to him, don't use the literal meaning, right? He's translating, he's using alternative words. But in Arabic, how would the scholars discuss with the Mushabbiha? Because we say yad and they say yad in Arabic. And we say ayn and they say ayn. So, and then they're going to say, and it's not like the creation. We say it's not like the creation. They say it's not like the creation. So how is there any debate here? When you translate it, it's clearer. But when you leave it in Arabic, it's not so clear because we're using the same words. So how did we even accuse them of being Mushabbiha? Right here, this point of Imam Al-Qushayri, I'm not going to translate yet and istiwa and stuff. Let's leave it in Arabic to see how did they understand that some people are likening Allah to the creations without translating these words. So he said, the goal is for someone who has a bit of sense to clarify that for someone to say his istiwa is an attribute of himself that is inconceivable, and his yad is an attribute of himself that is inconceivable, and the qadam is an attribute of the self that is inconceivable, that someone who has even a bit of sense clarifies that this talk is camouflage, and behind it there is giving Allah a manner of being and likening him to the creation and a call to ignorance. What's the problem here? Which he didn't mention yet. Even if they leave it in Arabic. The problem is that they insist on certain words and certain statements and certain principles according to them that make us know that they do liken Allah to the creations. Like they say, even in Arabic, Tawil is not permissible. So what they're saying is, we don't want an alternative meaning. We don't want a non-literal meaning. They also say, although they're keeping these words in Arabic, ala zahir, by its apparent meaning. And they also say, ala al-haqiqah, by its literal meaning, by its real meaning. They might say real sometimes. Or they might avoid the word literal, but that's what haqiqi means when we're talking about words. You could be using the word in a haqiqi sense, that means literal, or in a majazi sense, that means figurative. So Imam Al-Qushayri is saying If you hear someone saying his istiwa is an attribute of his self and it is inconceivable, and his yad is an attribute of his self and it's inconceivable, and his qadam is an attribute of his self, it's inconceivable, and his wajh is inconceivable, and his ayn is inconceivable, that actually this is camouflage. And behind this talk is tashbih, is likening Allah to his creations. If they say it in English, then it's even clearer. If you quote a person saying his face is inconceivable, and his hands are inconceivable, and his eyes are inconceivable, and his feet are inconceivable. Okay, where does it stop then? According to you, yani, he could have a polka dot tie that's inconceivable? Not to digress too much, but I did not too long ago, actually recently, have a discussion with a Wahhabi. And he insisted, he said, you must tell me how you translate yet. How do you translate it? That's his question to me. He could mean by that, how do you explain it? But he means, I think, what he said. It means, which word do you choose to assign to the word yet, so that you can use an English word? And I refused to choose a word. And I told him, Allah knows the meanings of these ayahs. Allah knows the meanings of these attributes. Allah knows what yet means. This is his attribute. So after he insisted and I refused, he said, okay, then it seems like your position is not far from ours, except you just don't want to translate it, because he said, we say that his hand is not like any hand, and only he knows the reality of his hand. I said to him, but it's not a body part. He said, yeah, it's not a body part. That's what he said. He said, yeah, it's not a body part. He said, so we agree. I said, okay, but we don't take it literally. We say that we take an alternative meaning. We don't explain it literally. Here, he refused to agree with me on that point. Do you see how tricky he tried to be? He refused to agree with me here. When I said, he tried to say, okay, we're agreeing on all that stuff. It's just you translate. We translate and you don't. So I said, but we say we don't take it literally, and we say we make a ta'wil, and we say we take an alternative meaning for yad. It's not the apparent meaning. This here he didn't want to engage, I think. He didn't want to get into an argument, but he didn't want to defend anything or say, yeah, I agree. So I knew that this is where I touched a nerve. And actually, right around there, he dropped out of the conversation. قال رحمه الله وقد وضح الحق لذي عينين. He said, may Allah have mercy on him, and the truth has become clear for whoever has two eyes. وَسِرُّ الْأَمْرِ أَنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ الَّذِينَ يَمْتَنِعُونَ عَنِ التَّأْوِيلِ مُعْتَقِدُونَ حَقِيقَةَ التَّشْبِيهِ. The secret of the matter is that those who refrain from ta'wil truly believe in likening Allah to the creations, because that's their goal behind forbidding you from ta'wil. Their goal behind forbidding you from ta'wil is to insist that you take these attributes by their literal meanings, and their literal and apparent meanings are body parts and bodily attributes, like places and directions and organs and motion and containment and contact and separation and changing. غَيْرَ أَنَّهُمْ يُدَلِّسُونَ. However, they use trickery, so they don't come out blatantly about it. وَيَقُولُونَ. They say, لَهُ يَدٌ لَا كَالْأَيْدِي. He has a hand, not like the hands. وَقَدَمٌ لَا كَالْأَقْدَامِ. And a foot, not like the feet. واستواء بالذات لا كما نعقل فيما بيننا. And he has an istiwa of his self that's unlike anything we can conceive among ourselves. فَلْيَقُلِ الْمُحَقِّقُ. So let the precise one say, that's you, the one with the right belief, who's learning the religion properly, learning the belief properly. You heard someone talking like that? Then let the precise one say, هَذَا كَلَامٌ لَا بُدَّ مِنْ اسْتِبْيَانٍ. This is talk that needs clarification. It means, if you catch somebody talking like that, get in there somehow and say, hold on a second. You don't have to interrupt him per se, it depends on your situation. But you need to slide up in there and say, hold on. What you just said needs clarification. Let's say he said it in a way that's not explicit. Let's say he said Allah has a yad, and it's not like our hands. And he has ayn, it's not like our eyes. And he has wajh, and it's not like our faces. So those words are true. But he's a Wahhabi, for example. He's a Mushabbiha. Or, he's affiliated with certain people. You already said, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyyah and al-Albani, etc., for example. So all the clues are there. But he said something that's not explicitly a wrong statement. But what is he doing? He's setting the table, right? So when you get the chance, you hop up in there, you say, hold on a second. This statement of yours requires clarification. قولكم نجري الأمر على الظاهر ولا يعقل معناه تناقض. Say to them, you're saying that we take these verses by their apparent meanings, but at the same time you're saying we cannot conceive what it means is a contradiction. Did you catch that? You're saying, we say to them, hold on a second. You're saying that we take these matters by their apparent meanings, and at the same time that we cannot conceive what these verses mean is a contradiction. Because how do we take it by the apparent meaning if we cannot conceive what it means? That's where you'll catch him many, many, many times, brothers and sisters. See, this debate is a slippery one. He's going to always run around and say, I'm not saying he has body parts. He's going to avoid all those words. Here's the question. Why am I not sticking him? The issue is clear for me. I know the proofs. How come this conversation is still going? How is he able to slip out of what I'm saying? It could be because there's a vague contradiction that you need to bring to light, which is that he's saying it's not like anything we can conceive. But at the same time, he's saying we have to take it as it is. So when you bring those two together and clarify for him that, no, that's actually a contradiction. You're saying on one hand that Allah is the one who knows what it means. No one understands this. And at the other instance, you're saying we have to take it by its apparent meaning. We say to him, for example, you are accusing me of denying Allah's attribute because I won't say hand. Although I say yad, but I won't say hand. You are accusing me of denying his attribute, and you are accusing me of emptying the meaning out. You are accusing me of just keeping the word and making the word devoid of any meaning. So what meaning do you claim no one knows but Allah? How are you even translating this? That's if he's translating. And if he's not translating, if the conversation was in Arabic, it's enough to say, how are you taking it by its apparent meaning? You're denying Tawil. Yani, in other words, if truly you cannot conceive its meaning, then that in itself is Tawil. Because if you cannot conceive its meaning, you are not taking what appears. So you're making a Tawil right then and there by saying it's its meaning is inconceivable. You contradicted yourself when you backed that up or followed that up with, and we take it as it appears. Is that clear, brothers and sisters? Ask any question you have, please. You said, so he says we cannot conceive its meaning, but then says a statement which shows he conceived a meaning for it. And that's the concealed contradiction, right? Yes. And like I just mentioned for you a little while ago, when I discussed with this Wahhabi recently, he tried to agree with me in everything. Let me tell you what he tried to do at first also. What happened was someone was having a discussion on the phone. So they brought me into the conversation. Talk to this guy. I asked the person who invited me, what did he say? What's his claim? They posted his claim. Said, this is his claim. So I got it. I said, this is your claim. What's your proof for that claim? He said, well, who are you? What's your qualifications, etc., etc. All of that was nothing. I had no intention on answering that question whatsoever. Even the person who invited me into the conversation said, can you please just tell him? I said, absolutely not. All that is a diversion. If he really wanted to talk about the truth, then it's enough for him to present the proof for his claim. His claim is there, and I'm asking for his proof. Who am I doesn't mean anything. So finally, he stopped asking me for that, and then he tried to substantiate his point. So we went into the discussion. So he tried to agree with me, like I said to you. He said, okay, the difference between us is that we translate and you don't translate, and we agree on everything else. Because we're not saying that it's a body part, and you're not saying it's a body part, and you're not denying it. He says, it's apparent you're not denying it. You just don't want to translate it. So he said, you don't deny it, we don't deny it. We're not saying it's a body part. You don't say it's a body part. We're in agreement. I told him, but we don't say that it's apparent. And we take an alternative meaning, and this is the point that he didn't want to defend. And then he, soon after that, just bailed out of the conversation altogether.